Well, it's been a while, Brian Weedeye, since significantly new ways to play sports games have emerged. We've, for years and years and years, have had franchise modes for I don't know if it's a decade, but certainly for the better part of the last console generation, and obviously this entire one, we've had Ultimate Team modes. Various online modes have been available for a long time. But yet this fall, in at least two video games from EA, we're getting, relatively speaking, a new way to play the game. And these are variations of drafts and Ultimate Team. With Madden, it's called Draft Champions. And with FIFA, it's called I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the FUT Draft.
Yeah, I won't call it that. Let's just call it the Ultimate Team Draft. I'm not going to call it what they call it.
That's right. But what's interesting is that these are new ways to play the game. Obviously, the core game is the same. You're playing football, or you're playing international football, soccer. You're playing NFL or soccer. But the way that you actually put your team together is on the fly. You're given some options and you quickly make choices, and your opponents quickly make choices, and then you roll with your team. So you don't get to learn your team. You don't build them over time. It's a very sort of short team building experience in both. And then you have sort of short 2, 3, 4 game experiences at which at the end you are rewarded in various ways. These are interesting for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about. Number one is potentially esports related. Number two is potentially getting people that aren't interested in Ultimate Team more interested in those modes. And Ryan, you've also posited a theory that these are potential sort of initial ways to explore a complete splintering of these kind of games from a Ultimate Team centered game and a more traditional centered game. So let's just start with both Draft Champions and the Ultimate Team Draft. Brian, do you think that these will be adopted and successful out of the gate when they're introduced this fall?
I have my doubts, but I could be absolutely wrong. I mean, I don't know the reach that these are going to have, the appeal they're going to have to people in general. They kind of compared it to a fantasy football take, like as far as Madden goes, a fantasy football take. And it's not really fantasy football. So I don't really see that connection there, and I don't think people are going to find there to be a fantasy football type connection. But the main thing to do with these modes really is that they allow people a chance to get players they want on their teams, get a variety of players over time because they end up keep redrafting for different teams. And that's one of the reasons that they had so much trouble, for instance, in FIFA with the coin selling and everything, which was some of these players are so expensive on the Ultimate Team market, and they're so rare in packs that it may be your favorite player. You are never going to get them on your team. This is going to give people a chance to, in a limited sense, get players on their team. But at the same time, the excitement of getting that player could be ended quickly if they lose and they're out, or if they win all 4 games. Either way, you're starting over again. And I definitely think it's interesting, at least. I think conceptually it makes some sense. I'm just not sure it's really going to be the draw that an Ultimate Team was, for instance. But at least it's not microtransaction based. Although in FIFA you do have to pay a buy-in with your coins. So I'm not sure how that's going to limit people as far as going in and trying it out. Depends on the rewards you get, I guess. But it's a commitment. It's a lack of commitment. The Ultimate Team modes have required such a commitment, hours upon hours upon hours, just to get a decent team, just to be able to compete against people. And in this mode, everyone's kind of going to be on a level playing field, and you're going to have a chance to just see who comes out and plays better, because teams are going to be balanced. You can't have a ton of highly rated players. You're just going to have draft pick from a certain tier of players, essentially. And it's going to create, I think, good games probably for online play. because it's again, it's variety that's driving Ultimate Team, getting the players they want, changing the players, as opposed to if you go online and play just a standard online game, it's going to be all Seahawks, all Patriots, all Colts, all Packers, and Cowboys, and that's about it. And you end up with 5 or 6, 7 teams you see online. But with this mode, it's going to be creative. You're going to be seeing different teams and different makeup of teams all along the way. So I think that does add to its appeal. I'm just not sure if this is going to break. I don't think this is going to break out like an Ultimate Team did.
Well, it's definitely not going to, because it's the first attempt, right? We know whenever you introduce a mode or a new way to play a game for the first time, it's not going to be perfect, right? There will be problems that will arise. Perhaps it'll be, people, it takes too long to put the team together, or perhaps, there are going to be certain player combinations that are quickly discovered that will be by far the best, or who even knows, right? I mean, so right out of the gate, there are going to be things that don't quite work, but that's okay, because you have to be willing to accept that whenever you've got a new mode. I'm actually quite interested in how this is going to do, because I do view it as quite a great bridge. My personal issue is simply that there are so many of these games coming out in such a short amount of time. I just don't know if I'll be able to really dig into this mode as much as I would like to, just because I'm going to be playing, Madden, FIFA, and NBA, and NHL, all these games at the same time. But that aside, I'm definitely interested in seeing how it could potentially bridge that gap between, like in FIFA, someone like me who really kind of just tends to play the career mode, and I pick my club and I go through a few years with that. I don't get into Ultimate Team for all of the reasons that you said. It's just a significant commitment of time and commitment of money. I'm also not into pro clubs and things like that. Not because I don't recognize they're not good, just because when it comes to time and the the number of games across the spectrum that I like to play. But I could see myself saying, well, I don't feel like playing my 10th straight game with my Everton club. Let me hop into Ultimate Team Draft, pick a team over the course of a few minutes and see how it goes. It's also interesting to me, and this is if I have it right, where the Ultimate Team Draft definitely is more around getting you to continue to play FIFA Ultimate Team, because the rewards are basically for your Ultimate Team mode. You get card packs and coins, whereas Draft Champions seems to be in Madden really just a new way to play the game. I don't think, and I could be wrong, there's anything directly tied to Ultimate Team rewards like there is in FIFA. So with Madden Draft Champions, I'm sort of interested as to what the long-term appeal will be of it, the persistence, because like when you play in a connected franchise mode, the long-term appeal is building your team over the course of years and drafting players and seeing how that goes, whether you're online or offline. And obviously in the Madden Ultimate Team, the appeal is going up the leaderboards and things. So, and I know that there are leaderboards and stuff in Draft Champions. So those are some of the sort of interesting things I see around it. But personally, I'm interested. I'm definitely willing to give these the benefit of the doubt, and I'll be curious to see sort of what the surprising things are, both positive and negative, and how those are adjusted both this year and in coming years. Because as I said, the one thing we know is that nothing will work great out of the gate. They'll have to figure it out. I mean, heck, they're constantly making tweaks and adjustments to Ultimate Team even now. So these modes, I have a feeling, will be the same. I think the more interesting thing, though, and again, I'm completely stealing this from you, Brian, is this really lends itself to esports, right? I mean, we know that esports are getting more and more popular. Even those of us who do not pay attention to the competitions hear more and more about the fighting games and the Dota 2s and all these different, esports competitions that take place. And when you have a level playing field, then the Maddens and the FIFAs really could potentially go right into this arena. And you feel, I believe, that this is a way that you can, introduce esports to these games without having to have players sort of be on uneven terms with one club that might be better than the other, for example.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about kind of the rules behind esports to say that these in their form currently would work for that, because there's still a level of randomness as far as what players are offered to you that you can draft from. But EA, as last year, they made a statement about how they want to get more into esports, and 2K is absolutely going that direction too. And so I think what we're seeing is at least a step towards that, and maybe they're going to revise it or evolve it into an esports kind of mode. But that's definitely where they're going towards, and I think there's this mode specifically compared to anything else they have in their games is most well suited for it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, what I think the ultimate goal is to broaden the appeal of the game as much as possible. And when you are able to do what you do now with the Maddens and the FIFAs of the world, which is they already have the appeal of most of the core sports gaming community. I mean, whether you love or hate Madden, it is the only choice for the NFL. And so if you want to play a simulation style football game, you have to go with Madden. So, that they've already got that market cornered. And then, of course, they've created a new market with the Madden Ultimate Team, with Draft Champions and sort of the ability to take the ratings and the auction houses and you've got the best quarterback in the league, therefore you're going to win. When you take that out of it and it just becomes competition between two people playing, and not necessarily both playing as the Seahawks or both playing as the Patriots, just both playing two different teams, relatively even playing field. But I might decide to go with a slightly better running attack or slightly better, the strategic choices to how you make up your roster.
Yeah.
Then you're getting into sort of that new market. And again, with FIFA Ultimate Team Draft, it's the same sort of thing. You pick your type of club that you want, the sort of formations, and then you make your choices. So you will see different makeup of team, but ultimately there's an element of strategy and randomness that, again, brings that potentially creating a third market that I think, I find fascinating as we sort of see these things evolve.
Yeah, and just from looking at the modes, FIFA's is definitely more involved because it does have a buy-in. It does ask you to make a choice between chemistry, between players, and just drafting the highest rated players.
Yep.
But in general, the two modes, what they're trying to do is give you a simple way to play something similar to Ultimate Team. Because even for me, so I cover these games for a living, but if I were to go into Ultimate Team and just start it up, it is intimidating. It is overwhelming. And it may not be the case for people who've been playing Ultimate Team for years, but I buy the games every year. And if I go into Ultimate Team, I just feel overwhelmed. There's too much going on, too much I have to do in the menus. I don't know strategically what to do at the start either. But with these modes, very simple. You're just picking the player you want, putting your team together, and going out and playing. And then if you screw it up, you get to start all over again. So there's definitely a crowd that's going to resonate with that crowd, because Ultimate Team is just too heavy for a lot of people. Very popular, but it's still a smaller percentage than the majority of the game that people would play. So they're trying to hook those people in. And then I do think long term they look at this and say, here's one way. They get comfortable with this draft mode, and then you're right, we do push them into FIFA Ultimate Team with rewards and the like. So it's interesting to see where this is going to go, because the structure is there for it right now. I'm not sure if it's enough for people yet, but it makes sense what they're trying to do, and it makes sense who they're targeting with these modes.
Now, every time I ask any of the guys who make Madden or FIFA or NBA 2K or any of these games, I ask about, are these Ultimate Team and Ultimate Team type modes ultimately going to take over and be the main focus of these games? And they all say no, of course not. You need the core game. That is how the vast majority of people play it. And even most of the developers that I talk to are, of a certain age and of a certain sort of background with these games, and they except for the guys who are dedicated to those, those offshoot modes, are like, no, I kind of like to play my connected franchise. I kind of like to play my league and stuff like that. But you see this also as further evidence of any what I think you see as just a inevitable splintering of these games and potential either separation of the sort of the old school sports games and the new pay to play, pay to win ultimate team modes. Again, so you see it as a clear sort of almost fork in the road, and yet for the most part, the guys who make these games say that that's not the case. So what is it about this specifically that you think is another harbinger of the future, a couple, 2-3 years down the line of the splintering?
Right. So EA touts their digital revenue every quarter. It goes up, and it's becoming such an important part of why their stock is at an all-time high is digital revenue. And they always cite the ultimate team modes in the sports games, the free-to-play games, and then they even had a free on mobile, and then they even had a free-to-play ultimate team game on PC, which just recently shut down. It's the barrier to making more money digitally is the $60 price to buy the game. They're going to eventually break these ultimate team modes off into free-to-play games because they will get more people in and there will be more people spending in the economy. They need something then for these $60 products to replace it because they still need to make digital revenue out of those. So they're going to be developing over the next few years. It may be this idea, it may be something else they come out with next year or the year after, but they have to develop a different concept that's going to make them digital revenue in the long run, because not only are these modes primed to move out on their own, but they're eventually going to lose steam. Ultimate Team can only be developed so far. People can only play it year to year so much and have to restart every year that it's not going to be the cash cow forever. They have to innovate. They have to evolve, even while these games are, whether they've peaked or not, they have to look farther down the line. I think that's what they're doing here, and they're not really trying to make money out of these modes right now, and maybe they do in the future. Maybe that's where these go, but they're going to be coming up with something. They're going to continue to try other things because they can't rely only on Ultimate Team to drive their revenues, because they can't rely on that forever.
Call me old-fashioned, but I think that the $60 entry fee to play Ultimate Team is ultimately, no pun intended, still going to be the way that these games are put together.
But even now with the $60, what you see are pre-order bonuses that try to get people to spend more on only Ultimate Team stuff. So hey, there's a super deluxe Madden for $100. So basically, what there's basically they're just pre-selling you $40 worth of Ultimate Team content, and they would love to do that just on its own without. There are people who would play those modes and spend money on those modes if they. I go back to NBA Live as the perfect example of that. No one was going to buy NBA Live, so they can't make money in Ultimate Team. But if they did a free Ultimate Team NBA game, they would actually get people playing it and people spending in it.
Well, if those people want to fund my ability to continue to have our online Madden leagues and, to keep playing seasons as Everton and FIFA and all of the other stuff that I have so much fun and many millions of others do, I'm fine with that. All right, Brian Weed, I thank you, sir. It'll be very interesting to see this fall how these new modes stack up and where they ultimately bring people in, and if they do accomplish the goal of further increasing the monster that is Ultimate Team.